It moved, so you're all gonna be,
It centers everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
all right. Hopefully I have enough system resources. I realize that I have quite a few things open, but so we'll see how this goes. All right, Randy, I think we're streaming and we're recording. So if you want to call us to order.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to Conservation Commission meeting in September. Jamie, would you please take attendance?
I will start in person. Marla Zando. Here. Chuck Spanger.
Here.
Richard Harvey. Emily Springer.
Here.
And remote, Randy Hogan.
Here.
Noah Perlett.
Here.
Rita Breton. Right. And April and Eric are also here.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. So I would like to begin our time together with an acknowledgement that is honoring all Indigenous people who came here before us and nurtured this place as stewards of Mother Earth, the first people. I make this acknowledgement aware that this land is unceded and that issues of water and territorial rights and encroachment upon sacred sites are ongoing in the Wabanaki homeland. I also want to acknowledge the Owaskawag people who once lived in what is now Scarborough, and that as we support efforts for land and water protection, we honor the current tribes who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We will now take a vote on the minutes from the past two meetings with thanks to Jamie for capturing our conversations and putting these together for our review and vote. Are there any changes that anyone wants to make or amendments?
Or a motion to approve.
I move to approve both of them.
I second.
All right, we shall roll call. Marla.
Yay.
Chuck.
Yay.
April.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't
to
vote.
vote.
You don't need to. No, sorry.
Just when my name is
force of
called,
habit.
I'm here for you.
Sorry about that.
This meeting is under protest.
Emily.
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Noah.
Yes.
Rita. I saw you say yes. Richard. Technically, I guess we have a quorum, so we don't need an alternate to vote, but it's not, if you're in support, you can
hear. Yeah. All the support is good. Thank you. So this evening, our agenda is packed and we're still going to work to close us out by 7:30. It's designed so that we can touch on a few key items or many key items, but limit discussion where it's not necessary or germane to discussing these items. So just know that I might insert myself if I feel like the conversation is taking us out of the time. I want to be mindful of the amount of time that we have available tonight. Lots to do. So we're going to be looking at, we have our old business now organized by our 3 key goals. So there's a few things that are under conserving land, and also mindful that, of course, if it falls under one goal, it could also apply to other goals, but just for the sake of putting them under a specific goal, that's how this agenda is organized. So we're going to be just noting the sustainability joint memo, sustainability committee joint memo to the council. We have a public benefits memo that we have drafted. I'd like to work to finalize that memo and submit it to the council to add to the joint memo we've already submitted, and to talk about trail networks in the Eastern Trail. And I'd like for that piece, Noah to lead us off on that piece. I don't believe we have any updates that are specific to building resiliency. And then I'd like to spend a little time at this committee scheduling the next education subcommittee meeting. I think there's a few things that we're excited about in engaging the citizenship, the citizens of Scarborough. And we have a few ideas, but I think what we want to do is take that to a subcommittee. So let's spend the time that we have tonight agreeing on schedules and setting the next subcommittee meeting. Under new business, no updates that I know of that are specific to conserving land or building resiliency goals. But we do have some opportunities for education, specifically around our annual report submission. There's a draft and it is due the 1st of October. So I'd like to get that finalized with your help and review and additions, adjustments, so forth. Wanted to note that we have again, the time of year for the conference for the Maine Association of Conservation Commissions, and get a sense from you all of your interest in attending. I know Chuck and I really enjoyed our participation last year, and then we'll go through some updates as we usually do. And then we need to identify, not only set our next meeting agenda, but identify the date, because the normal meeting date for that we would have in October is Indigenous Peoples Day. So we want to find a different date, perhaps looking to the following week. Do I have a motion to approve that agenda?
I so move.
Oh, all right.
You beat me to it.
I second.
Oh. Thank you. I will call the vote. Marla,
Yes.
Chuck,
Hit, yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Noah,
We're voting on the agenda?
to approve the agenda.
Okay, yes, yes.
You know,
Excellent. Thank you all. Okay, so thank you all. All right, on to old business. So we did submit the joint memo, the joint memo that we put together with a sustainability committee with our thoughts and recommendations for the council on the request for the GMO waiver by the Down/Crossroad Holdings was submitted to the town council. I got a couple of responses from Councillor Hamel and Councillor Anderson. And I think we all got a response, email response from April. And from those councillors, this memo was enormously helpful. I have not had a chance to listen to the meeting at which they had one of the public workshops on the GMO waiver request. I don't know if anyone has any questions, or April, if you want to make a comment for us.
Sure. So as it pertains to Conservation Commission, the workshop that we had with the Downs this past Wednesday, we really didn't get into the details of their latest exemption request. They gave us their annual report, and then they've actually presented us with a second application. And so the second application is a request for 298 exemptions, 289 exemptions. And with the idea that we would kind of informally table the first application. And so they're looking at taking a more phased approach to getting at least initially maybe a smaller number of units exempted. The council really didn't have time for deliberation or really much conversation yet. But definitely, I mean, this is now on the table for discussion at a future council meeting. And so I still think that the timeliness of the memo that came from this group is going to feed right into council conversation.
and you did request a
did.
non-action agenda item for a future meeting
I
about the
did.
memo?
I did.
So do you have a sense, would that likely be like the next council meeting or a couple out?
It's a good question. I can ask John, whether he thinks that we're gonna be discussing the Downs exemption, at the next meeting, in which case I would certainly push and request that my non-action item be tied to that. But I think it would also be, I would be comfortable if the non-action item, my request was pushed to whatever it is that we do discuss the Downs exemption again.
And so just in case anyone didn't watch the council meeting last week or the recording of it, April, like I said, April suggested or requested that non-action item and suggested that members of this commission and the sustainability committee might like to attend to address that memo or answer any questions. So just to give you all a heads up about that, and we'll let you know when that date is set.
Yep, as soon as I know from John a better sense, I'll touch base with Jamie directly.
Great. Any comment from the commission?
April, I just have one quick question, and this is a super general question. And I know it's sort of a new proposal that you probably haven't had a lot of time to vet, but in general, is this a larger list of exemptions or a smaller list of exemptions, or the same as the original one?
It's a significantly smaller number of exemptions. It's about half of what they asked for originally, and it's tied to a very specific phase of development. Mainly what they're looking to develop is the part of the Downs that's coming off from Higas Parkway. And so they're looking to continue that road that's going to open from Higas Parkway towards the grandstand. And so there's a number of buildings along that road that they would be looking to build in that first phase.
Okay, thank you.
And they were anticipating, was it over a 3-year?
It's a 3-year request, yeah.
So those are the ones that you want to proceed and included in what you're saying, okay?
That's what they're asking us to tackle, that application before we go back to the original application, which was for 600 and something units. This 289 is part of the original application request.
They've just kind of
Not
like
in
broken
addition
it
to.
off
Yes.
and
Yeah.
said, let us start with this, kind of
Yes.
prove ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back. Or if the GMO has changed, then they wouldn't necessarily have to come back. There is some discussion about revising the GMO also because this process is cumbersome.
Okay, thank you. So also important to the conversation is another memo from us describing what we see as a menu of options of public benefits that would be relevant to our remit around conservation. And I'd like us to get to a point where we have this finalized. We've had a chance to see it before. We've seen it before this meeting. Oh, great. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing.
You guys can't see this.
Because I don't know that I'm able to do live editing. Are you able to, Jamie?
I can do it. I will do my best. So what is everyone's, all right, this is a poll for the people in the room. What is your preference? Would you rather see everyone on the screen or would you rather look at the document that we're all looking at?
The document.
I'd like to look at the document because I can't pull it up at the moment.
Okay. So I apologize to everyone remote. We aren't, well, I'm going to be able to see you, but no one else will. So give me just a minute to revise screens here. Okay. I will try to make this larger for everyone.
Maybe I'll poll also who has information or additions to bring tonight to this memo.
comments. So Marla has some comments.
Okay, great.
And really, these are just going back, these go back to the July 11th meeting. So when I read through this, I was thinking, did we include all these things? Like, so back at that July 11th meeting, Pete talked about specific reference to Scarborough Marsh and specific reference to the use of nature-based solutions to address stormwater resiliency. Is that in that document?
So I have not made any revisions to this document. Randy, have you? Since
I
it
have
was
not,
sent out?
no.
Okay, so,
Okay, so I do agree with Pete that if there's a place where we could reference the Scarborough Marsh. Jessica also suggested adding specific thresholds. And what I think she means by that is there are a lot of places in that document where it says, percentage of land conserved or percentage of impermeable surfaces. So there's a lot of, but there's no specific number that goes with it.
Exactly.
So maybe we don't need the number, or.
Oh, I think we do. I think we want to put
Okay.
numbers to all of these.
All right, so that was Jessica's suggestion, and I agree with that having specific numbers would be more beneficial, but also perhaps difficult to come up with, which is why there aren't any numbers yet. And then Jamie noted, I like this idea too, that perhaps other committees would want to weigh in on this. So, that's all.
Thank you.
Those from- Oh, you're welcome.
So I was able to check in with Jessica before this evening, and she does have some thoughts that she wants to add to it, just wasn't able to do it before tonight. And my intention was that we would have specific numbers for all of these bullet points. These were the bullet points for right now were essentially placeholders for us to add specific measures. Jamie, would you be able to scroll down to the start of where we just use the word percentage? So these indicators would have would have specific sort of minimum percentages or ratios for the council to measure requests against. And right, I think that it would, if anyone has publicly available knowledge that would help round this out, that would be helpful. If we don't, then maybe we can also split up research to be able to provide that. And then the other thing is, do we want to keep all of these? I have been asked to rank or prioritize more important measures over others. So that's sort of the back and forth I'm hoping for from the commission.
Going back to the July meeting as well, I think we talked about adding in some goal and also indicator around reduced pesticide use. Am I remembering that correctly? It's a couple months now.
Great.
it was just, I remember it being
Talked about
discussed
it.
and we had, I think we had also talked about how that would be a difficult one to enforce and ensure that they were actually following through on.
Right. I do think it's important. I think, last night I happened to be driving from Ferry Beach and there was a big sign right next to the beach where they had sprayed mosquito, like the whole bit, like right there next to the beach, and it just made me sick. Right on that drainage spot. So yeah, I do think that's important, and whether we can find a metric there, there has to be something that we can measure that against. Going back to what Pete advocated for from the beginning, even if we just reduce pesticide use in the, you know, the pieces of land that are right next to marshes, that would be a huge benefit.
Mm.
I agree.
Okay, so when I used to work for the Scarborough Land Trust, we talked about land conservation, and one of the things I remember from back then was that the Trust for Public Land does have some resources. I just went to their website, and it was really interesting. You can plug in your town and see how does your city's park score rating stack up. So I just put in Scarborough, Maine. Now, I don't know exactly where they get this data, but it said that 18% of our residents are within a 10-minute walk of a park. The national average is 55%. So that's one of their criteria, I guess, for conserving land. Is it, you know, does it allow residents to, you know, can they get there within 10 minutes?
So there's a, thank you, Marla. There's like, what, 10 bullets down, percentage of users within a 15-minute journey. So let's put, if the national average is 55%, you say at minimum, the national average of 55%, those rank scores are looking at cities that can get to 100%. The other thing when I was there, they hadn't yet captured all of Scarborough. So the boundaries, I haven't looked in the past couple months, but the boundaries for Scarborough on that scoring weren't the same boundaries that we know Scarborough to be. So I don't want to look at that, but I think this is a place where we can say either a minimum of national average or we can even set it higher, like 80% of users or residents are within 15-minute journey from key amenities.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, TPL says within a 10-minute walk of a park. Not that it's, I mean, it's important, even 15-minute drive is great.
And here, like, what do we mean by public park? So, which we could stick with that.
It would be interesting to see if they break that out by like rural versus urban areas. Because
Probably not. I think it's.
No, they don't, but this is primarily for urban, encouraging urban areas to, and specifically large cities to enhance their planning so that any new parks being planned are cited so that people can access it by walking, which sounds like a long way of describing a 10-minute walk. But if you know, this is sort of like talking about major highways or roadways where you don't have crosswalks. You have to figure out all these different barriers, and there are ways that Trust for Public Land had been able to, and Jessica Sargent was actually part of the team that would do that, help communities plan so that they can place parks that are within that 10-minute walk. So this would be a place where we can just even replace this bullet point by saying, one public benefit is that anything that you, that 80% of your residents are within a 10-minute walk to a public park. if that is at least 80%, if that's something that this committee wants to do.
What's your reason for your comment about urban and rural? And how does Scarborough fit?
Well, I was just thinking that in more rural areas, things are more spread out, so
Yeah.
you're less likely to be a 10-minute walk from a park. So thinking about
We're kind of in between.
we've got some areas where that's absolutely doable and some where, west of the Turnpike where that's not likely to happen currently.
Sorry, I know my video's off, but I just want to jump in here. I think this is an incredibly important point for us to work on. And I also respectfully disagree that we need to think about this relative to sort of, as you just said, on one side of the highway or the not. Whatever this foundation is, I think we should have that as a goal for the quality of life for all Scarborough residents, regardless of geography.
And Noah, sorry, I probably wasn't clear. I wasn't saying that it wouldn't be supported west of the Turnpike. I was just saying, like, currently we probably don't have areas west of the Turnpike that are within a 10-minute walk to a public park, whereas east of the Turnpike, you're more likely to find those areas in Scarborough.
Yeah, so I guess my point is I'm thinking about this not just for this exact moment in time, but also to help direct conservation spending in the establishment of other, publicly available lands.
And here, I think, adding bike and public transportation to the walk piece is important for a place like Scarborough, where it does take a little bit more time, perhaps, but we're emphasizing not having to get in your car to access parkland or open access space.
So do you want me to change, Randy, you had suggested 85% of
Minimum.
residents?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a gross color.
So go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you want to add park or open space or key amenities such as walking, public transit, or bike? We haven't, unless this is specifically access to open space, we haven't specifically stated it in this bullet point.
Okay. So I would say are within up to the committee, 10 or 15-minute journey to a public park or open space, and scratch key amenities.
I agree, because key amenities could be a grocery store, which is good, but we're really focused on green space here.
No, I'd leave the walking, transportation, public transport, bike. So I just scratch key
Oh,
amenities.
sorry.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It could be your local Citgo.
Right. So I think, as we talked about, Jessica probably has some additional information from her profession that she can add in here, but rather than spend all of our time tonight, or a lot of our time tonight, group editing, and thank you, Marla and Emily, for pointing out the stuff that we had talked about last meet or in July to bring forward into this memo. What I'd like or invite you is to make direct comments in this document after this meeting, direct edits, comments, or if not, then just give me a call and let's have a conversation about it. And I still think, April, you can correct me, if we bring something for final approval by this committee at its October meeting, that it would still be useful and helpful information, that, we haven't passed the deadline by which it could be useful to the council.
I think that even if this gets pushed and you guys make your final recommendations in October, that's still going to be very relevant to the council.
Okay.
I have a suggestion if commission is open to it, but I think Andrew Mackey might have some good suggestions
Great. Okay.
to help with this and probably has some resources and research that you could share.
Okay.
It would make sense to look at the land conservation, the land bond board criteria, even though Andrew, I know says it's got some issues, but it could be helpful to look at that. But I don't think that's published on the town website. I'm not sure.
Oh,
So
No.
I'm on the land bond board. Sorry to jump in. And there's not in my experience, there's not a yes or no criteria. We have an evaluation method that's a bit old, and it creates a ranking for all properties, and that ranking is then used to compare to the ranking of previously conserved properties, whether they're comparable or not. So we got to be. I'm not sure how useful that tool is in this conversation.
Are there other thoughts or strong preferences on this public benefits memo that anyone wants to bring up tonight?
Doesn't sound, so for homework, do you want folks to go through that memo and either make additions or identify specific thresholds or percentages for review and discussion at our next meeting?
Yes. Could we set a deadline of September 30th for comments and additions, edits, and or conversation with me? And then what we'll do at our next meeting is we will have seen the final draft, and the hope is then at our next meeting, we approve it. We vote to approve. Does that sound good to everybody?
Randy, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Just a suggestion, as we begin to see, the edits and additions to this, if there are sort of specific bullets here that need more research in order to come up with those measures, perhaps reach out to the commission members and, ask for help with that.
Okay.
Be happy to help with the research on that.
I think this is my request for help with research.
Okay.
And does anyone want to take a few bullet points to look at, or how would you prefer to break it up?
I was going to suggest subcommittees meet to go through, but I don't know that it's broken out as in our larger topic areas.
Yeah. Well, maybe as we go through, and begin to prioritize these, various bullets. Maybe those that need more research will come to the head, to the surface, and we can perhaps decide if someone on the commission has, more expertise in a particular area and can do that research more easily than someone else. I'm just throwing things out to help
Okay.
us do that research.
I'm pausing because I'm just reading here. So there's the first couple of pieces are around green space, green surfaces, and outdoor space.
Mhm.
And I don't know if Noah, you and Pete would have some information about that, or would know where we could find some good research on those pieces.
I'm happy to work on that.
Thanks. And then we've got, I think the third bullet, we're pretty good, and we have a percentage. Fourth and fifth are around stormwater and rainwater harvesting. And then conserved wetland or aquatic habitat, wastewater, and land planted with drought resistant species, I think all relate to one another, even, in some way. I don't know if I can lean on you for that too, or if anyone else wants to take those on.
Wastewater is a bit out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
And
What about
and
land
Randy-
planted with drought resistant species? Sorry, Jamie?
sorry, I was just going, like wastewater, do you mean like sanitary sewer, or you mean
Storm runoff, or
like, I think
Yeah.
because wastewater
that.
is typically sanitary sewer or a septic, so do you mean stormwater?
Yes, or gray water, yes. Yeah, anything that can be recycled on site.
And then in terms of rainwater harvesting, DEP has specific requirements for that. And in the past, they aren't typically supportive of large scale rainwater harvesting. It depends on which watershed you're in typically. So just, if you want me to, I can do a little bit of research related to that.
Okay. Thank you. Noah, what about the conserved site conserved as wetland or aquatic habitat and land planted with drought resistant species?
Yeah, I've got some resources for that.
Very cool. The two bullet points around bike storage and parking spaces for electric hybrid vehicles, we have percentages in there. And then I just want to make sure that we check it against with the sustainability committee.
Yeah, I'll take that one on. That one is there are varying thresholds depending on what the type of development is. So we are probably going to have to work that out a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
What does that mean? Percentage of bike storage areas available, at least 5%. I don't understand that.
So Randy, is that at least 5% of residents, like in
Yes,
multifamily,
yes.
have access to bike storage?
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And then the EV percentage is related to the number of parking spaces, is relative to the parking spaces. Percentage of development land that's car free. So in other words, not used for cars or feel like that's also related to percentage of land protected on a space. Those two are related here. Like the first one, percentage of land area with functional green spaces. So we may strike that. Unless folks feel strongly. And then percentage of trails and walkways created that are connected to existing trails sounds like a NOAA stat.
Yep.
And then we've got percentages here. Restore or protect a minimum of 50% of the site or 20% of the total site area, whichever is greater, with native plants. I think Marla and Rita, does that sound good to you? Or you can change the percentages.
Yeah.
And then we got another one around the types of vegetation, requirement to or recommendation to designate a portion for pollinator garden. And then the last piece is mitigate the heat island effect for at least 50% or parking under cover. So we've got our percentages there. So we just have, with thanks to everybody who stepped up, a few bullet points for clarification and refinement. I think then at this point, if everyone would go into this document and put your name next to it and give it a priority ranking, or put notes in the bottom of this bullet point and say what you'd like to rank prioritize. In other words, if an applicant were to go before, or were up for consideration and were able to, and said that they could meet 2 of these bullet points and none of the others, what are those 2? Thank you, Rita, for that suggestion. I think we got a lot done here.
Sure. No, I appreciate you going through that. I think that will be very helpful. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thanks all. All right, so our next piece is discussing trail networks in the Eastern Trail. And Noah, would you like to lead us off on that discussion?
Yeah, yes, for sure. Thank you. So Randy and I spoke about this recently, and as you all know, we included a part of this component in our memo to the town council. And I want to really encourage us to think holistically, in that a couple things are happening at the same time, and we really have to think about changing culture in how we use an unbelievable resource that we have here in town. So these couple of things start with, the roughly $6 million project that will be starting in the near future on the Eastern Trail, on the edge of Scarborough, that will really complete the entire Scarborough section of the Eastern Trail and provide an absolutely unbelievable off-road travel opportunity, recreational opportunity. Well, we have to keep that in mind with the development that's happening on the Downs and in other parts of town as well. Other parts are all over town, including the apartments across the street on the other side of Haggis Parkway. And that we really need to be thinking about connectivity in a broader sense. And a few things have happened recently that have really almost, even further fueled my feelings about this. When the town recently announced on its website the decision, the planning board's approval of Costco, there was a lot of comments about it from people from all over, including Scarborough residents. But there was a remarkable number of people that commented on it on social media, asking about bike lanes on Payne Road and their concern for biking on Payne Road. And to me, that was a really poignant conversation, because you may or may not remember, I pressed Dan Bacon on this when he came and presented the Downs' plan to us as a committee a few months ago. And the Downs is not building any bike path out of that road access in any way, shape, or form. There is, and he told us that explicitly, that there will be no particular pedestrian or bike access out that on that road. You know, to me, that's just, I was incredibly disappointed at the time and continue to be so, in that it's just a failure of large-term thinking of connectivity of things like to our bike paths and the Eastern Trail. So I really think that we as a committee need to really work on this and think about how we can ensure really long-term vision of making our community as accessible as possible to things like biking and walking, particularly trying to get access to places, as we just discussed, parks and other green spaces, as well as the Eastern Trail. So I guess I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Noah. Thoughts, reactions from anyone?
Richard has a,
Is anybody doing any mapping, very concrete mapping, not only of the trails that exist, but what the usage rights are on every trail? Because there's certain very clear usage limitations on the Eastern Trail. And I'd like to know if the town is already doing mapping, or if it would be worthwhile initiating some sort of mapping project to sort of nail down where everything is.
to my knowledge, the town isn't doing any mapping around trails and trail systems and usage. Scarborough Land Trust may have some, I am sure has that information for their trails. Eastern Trail, it's largely, as long as it's non-motorized, there you can access the trail. Motorized vehicles is primarily the limitation there.
But you can use electric bikes.
I don't know that they've, I mean, I don't know that
Yes, you
it's come
can.
up as an issue yet.
They're permitted on the Eastern Trail.
Okay.
And so Jamie, I'm sorry to interrupt. I do want to add, the Eastern Trail actually has been collecting usage data over the last a little over a year at least. So they do have data for that trail in and of itself. And I also, as James said, I don't know if Andrew has parking data or whatnot on some of their properties in terms of just the amount of visiting, but I don't know if you have data.
I'm happy to check with both Andrew and Sammy on that.
Thanks, Rita.
So would it be possible to direct a quick and dirty look at what the trails look like in Scarborough, including all of these, I guess you call them, things like Old Millbrook, Prouts Neck, other housing developments, all have their own trail systems.
I don't know that the town has easy access to that information, because a lot of times those trails are set up as not necessarily open for public access. I don't think that they necessarily mind if the public use them, but they're really set up for the people that live in those developments specifically. And so the town based on the work that we put into and the difficulty that we had identifying all of the conservation areas associated with our subdivisions, I'm gonna guess we don't have trail information associated with our subdivisions either.
But I'm just saying, start with a base map and start to put little pieces together and just see what they say. There's no reason not to indicate, for example, the old Millbrook Trail, and then a note that it's only limited to, members of the association. Even though it's directly connected to the Eastern Trail, I meet people coming off the Eastern Trail, on the trail.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether that's legal or not, I have no idea.
And I'm not sure how much of this work may have been done as part of Community Services Parks and Open Space Master Plan that they're looking at, because they were looking at trail connectivity and access to their parks and things like that. So I will check with Todd Souza to
Okay.
see what information they've pulled together as part of that master planning process.
Thanks for the question, Richard and Jamie, for pulling that information together. I believe other commissions, conservation commissions in other towns have taken on mapping trail networks in their towns as a project. So that could be something that we undertake. I also want to thank again, Noah, for your comments, and I think it's worth more robust discussion. Perhaps I would say we'd add it to our agenda next month. I think it's important that we find a way, and it also, it suggests that maybe one of those items in our public benefits memo gets prioritized. If we are creating new developments without trail connectivity, that's a problem for the town and for the community. So let's talk about trail networks and the Eastern Trail next month. Let's consider making priority one of the bullet points related to trail networks. And think about ways that the commission can make recommendations and influence better trail connectivity throughout town. Okay, so the next one is scheduling the next education subcommittee meeting. I think it would be lovely if there's a chance that this subcommittee could meet before our next meeting in October. And so if there's a date that we could agree on, and I believe who we're talking about is Rita, Marla, Emily, and Chuck. And I'm happy to attend if the date works, but I'm not going to gum up the works to make it around when I'm available. So would you like to have a discussion now about finding a date that works for everybody?
Yes.
Go for it.
You said you already suggested the week after the normally scheduled date, which would have been the 10th, correct? So the week after is the 17th.
That is when I think we might be looking for the next Conservation Commission meeting.
Yeah, and the Education Committee meeting.
We want to try to do that before the 17th.
Before, yeah.
for
So
the 17th.
this is October we're talking about?
Well, the next conservation committee would be sometime in the middle of October, so we would want to have this subcommittee meeting prior to that.
Right.
Right.
So
But the
we could
10th would be
actually
the
do it.
normally scheduled day for
Oh.
the Conservation Commission meeting.
Okay, I have a question about this. Is this meeting going to be at town hall?
It doesn't have to be.
No.
Okay, well, all right. So I'm just wondering if certain people might like to be on Zoom.
I think we can make it on Zoom somehow or other. I think we could just make it a Zoom meeting, right, Marla?
Oh, okay, so we're all at home. That's
We can all be
fine.
at home. How about that? That
That's
makes it
fine.
easy.
That's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, I think that would
Emily, do you want to throw out some deeds and see
Yeah, we can.
Or Chuck just suggested October 10th, which would be our regular scheduled Conservation Commission meeting, but it's also Indigenous Peoples' Day. So if you want to just take our normal meeting time and use that as your subcommittee, although where it's a holiday, it may.
Yeah, I won't be available that day, but
I don't know if I will be either.
are Mondays usually a good day for folks?
Mhm.
Maybe Monday the 3rd,
Yeah, Monday, the 3rd works for me.
Marla,
That's fine.
Sure.
at 6, same time, just to keep things simple.
Yep, 6 PM. And it will be on Zoom. Okay,
We'll just do Zoom.
Okay.
that would be great.
Easy.
Fantastic. So Monday, October 3rd at 6 o'clock for the Education Subcommittee.
Does the town have a Zoom or do we need to add our own Zoom?
I think this is outside of Conservation Commission official business.
That's fine. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
okay.
you're able to, or if, I mean, you don't have to use Zoom, you can use like Google Meet or something like
That's right.
that.
Yeah, I have a Zoom. We can use my Zoom.
Okay.
So you'll send the invitations.
I'll send out invitations.
Thank you.
They probably, well, I'll try to get them out tomorrow.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Or
All right. So our next item is the annual report submission, which is due the 1st of October. There was a draft that was circulated with this agenda. Thank you, Jamie, for pulling it up.
Everyone here waits a minute. I'll get it so that you can see it also.
So background of this draft report is, again, organizing it in our along with our goals, to align with our goals, our 3 goal areas. And thanks to Jamie for getting us started. We have pulled what I believe we, can be proud that we accomplished in the past year. Oh, the reporting period is what, July 1 to June 30. So we're kind of missing July and August, and that's why I was wondering about the joint memo with the sustainability committee, if we want to keep that for next year's report or just leave it in here because we're reporting on October 1st. I don't know, Jamie, what do you think?
I think I would suggest, since the memo was sent after July 1,
Yeah.
and we just had that initial meeting in June, I would hold this for the next reporting. So for the next annual report.
Okay. So under conserving land on our goal, we commissioned a map of the existing conserved lands, open space, wetlands, and habitat. I think that's what we accomplished under conserving land in the past year. If somebody has something to add, please do that.
Yeah, one thing I need to add is that we
Great.
established a subcommittee on conserved lands, and I'm in charge of that, and I have been derelict in my responsibility, but we'll get it together.
We will note.
We can call it an accomplishment.
You can fall on the sword. It's okay.
Also report that Noah had a child.
Yeah.
Right. All right, great. And then building resiliency. We noted the community meeting that was well attended, right? I mean, I don't know if we want to add a robust group attended the community meeting. And Jamie submitted an application and we were awarded this community action grant. And I feel like I want to add a few more pieces to completing a merger with the Pest Management Advisory Committee. That was quite a process. I'd like to talk a little bit about that process.
All right, I'll make a note in there for you to add in there, Randy.
Okay. And then promoting engaged citizen stewardship. Couple of things publishing the articles in the Leader and the Town's e-newsletter, generally around lawn care and tick awareness. But thanks again, Rita, for your penning these. We had quite a few articles out there. And then just reiterated that Chuck and I attended the Conservation Commission's statewide conference with the notes about what went on in that conference. And then I would just wanted to recognize our past chair and past members and welcome new members, as well as council liaisons and staff members who serve the committee. So I would say, just like with the public benefits memo, if you have any additional comments or additions to this, can you please get it to me or in this memo by the end of September, or I would say September 23rd, Friday, September 23rd. And then I'll finalize it and submit it.
Send that out again.
Yep, so there is a link to this in the meeting agenda, but
there is.
I'll send
Okay.
it out again as well.
Thank you all. I think it's nice to see the activity of this commission. Okay, then the next item is that the Maine Association of Conservation Commissions planning its next conference, October 22nd in Brunswick. That is a Saturday. And looks like an interesting keynote around trail planning and a presentation around land protection projects. It's also a time for different Conservation Commission members to meet one another and hear some report outs of what's going on. And it's a great way to, like I said, make those connections. Is there anyone who is interested who'd like to express that tonight?
I would love to go and I just can't because it's my son's birthday.
Oh,
But next year, I probably could do it.
okay, good.
But yeah, literally that is October 22nd is his birthday. So I just can't. I can't swing it both. Maybe if he was 20, but he's not. He's only 7 going on. But
Happy birthday.
I remember working with Julie back when I was in the Scarborough Land Trust a long time ago. So that looks like a great talk.
Oh, good. All right. Well, if anyone gets an interest in coming, you'd be in touch and we'll plan on that. And then we'll also have a chance to talk
Randy,
about it at our next meeting. Rita?
excuse me, just a quick question. I assume this is probably all in person in Brunswick. Are you aware of a Zoom alternative or not?
I'm not aware of Zoom alternative. The last year's meeting was all in person and there was not a Zoom option.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Okay. Let's head into updates. Looks like town council is up.
I don't have anything unless you guys have additional questions. We had, well, no, I guess I could update. We did a counselor corner live, and the topic was public benefit. So you guys were well ahead of the curve on having that conversation as a committee, especially with your partnership with sustainability. It was our lightest attended Counselor Corner Live. We only had about, I think, 6 residents come. But the focus continues to be on, you know, what do people value in town? And, you know, the same reoccurring themes that get talked about at this committee level were discussed all over again with the residents who were in attendance. And so I think there's a lot of desire and push to make sure that this stays front of mind as the council makes some pretty big decisions here coming up.
Thank you. Planning board.
Sure. So the planning board is going to hear the site plan of AR Building, which is the apartment building project at the corner of Quorum and Muzzy, at its Monday, September 19th meeting, which starts at 6:30. That project is fairly early in the agenda, so if you're interested, it should be roughly around 6:35, 6:40, right after a quick public hearing on some shoreline zoning ordinance language. Sort of to Noah's point earlier in the meeting, I think this project is going to go a long way in what they're proposing for offsite improvements and connecting, especially Oak Hill with this section of Scarborough, you know, and Walmart and the Shaw's that's there right now. There are some other projects in the works as well that, in addition to some town projects on Quorum Road that I know will go a long way in making that connection a lot easier for residents. And I know we're starting to think about a townwide transportation study as well, which I think can sort of give us some leeway in having applicants provide certain amenities or hopefully improving the Payne Road corridor at the very least. But yeah, I mean, that's really the only update that I have. And I'd take any questions if anybody has any.
Well, I'm just wondering about that intersection with Muzzy Road and Payne Road. You know, where they come together at this really weird angle, and it seems like it's really unsafe there.
I believe it's going to be signalized, or at the very least straightened as
I've
part of
been
the Downs
hoping.
work.
Oh my gosh, that would be great.
I can look into that more and follow up with you though.
Thank you.
I just want to note also that the town's new planning director started at the end of August. So Eric and I had discussed possibly inviting her to attend our October meeting.
Great.
So her name's Autumn Spear. She comes to us from Texas. She and her family moved here specifically for this job. So she's kind of hit the ground running, and I think that Eric works most closely with her, but I think that she's been a good addition, and it's good to have someone fill that role in the planning office.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the other thing in terms of bike and pedestrian, the town does have a transportation committee, and they are in the process of kind of writing a scope, or very early stages of writing a scope for a capital improvement project looking at bike and pedestrian pathways. It just occurred to me when you said bike and ped, Eric. So that will be something that will, you know, depending on where that goes, I don't know if it could be a joint effort with this group, or we can just, you know, make sure that everyone's informed of the work that they're doing there. Like I said, it's very early stages. I think the hope is to include it as part of the 2024 budget, which is our next budget. We're on our 2023 budget currently. So it would probably start a year from now if it stays within the budget.
Nice, thank you.
And Sustainability Committee, I can give just a brief update. We have not met since the joint meeting. The planning board did hear or review the proposed amendments to the solar ordinance to kind of address the tree cutting issue. So as a reminder, the solar ordinance or this utility solar section of our zoning ordinance is the only section within that ordinance that speaks to tree cutting. All other types of development have no restrictions on tree cutting. And so that's limiting the number or the areas where solar arrays can be installed in Scarborough. So the committee has proposed language that would require minimizing tree cutting and requiring a revegetation plan both after the solar array is installed and upon decommissioning. So that was reviewed by the planning board, and I don't know if the message was really heard clearly that this is the only section of the zoning ordinance that talks about tree cutting. And so by limiting tree cutting for a solar array, we are essentially encouraging development of roads and buildings that are going to be there permanently, as opposed to solar arrays that are going to be there for 30 to 50 years and can be removed and replanted. So that will go back to the town council for the second reading, and hopefully the counselors get it. I think they understood at the first reading when we presented on it. So hopefully, even though it didn't sound like there was a lot of favor with the planning board, the revision will still go through. So we'll see. That should be coming up this month, I believe. And then we're waiting to hear when the draft EV charging ordinance will go before the ordinance committee.
Nice. Great. Good to hear that. What about the Quorum connector Turnpike?
I don't have an update on that, although I do check their website every month before I put together the agenda, and it did look like their frequently asked questions section had been updated. So there may be some new information there if you go. So the link is in the agenda. They did look like they were talking about, potential alternatives and or alternative routes and areas that may be impacted and things like that. So I encourage folks to go take a look at the FAQ section, because there is a little bit more information there than what has been there in the past.
Thanks. Kirsty, I'm curious if the next Counselor Corner Live has a topic or is in planning yet?
We just had our communications committee meeting this afternoon, Randy, so your question is well timed. Two topics that we're going to present to the full council and kind of get their take on it and see which way they're leaning. The first of the two ideas is to talk about transportation and traffic, which we know will probably generate a lot of public interest. And then the second topic is on, what is the second topic on? Oh, capital planning. So how we are prioritizing and planning our capital projects, our large scale capital projects, which obviously is also a hot topic right now because the library, if you missed it, the council did vote to approve the library going to ballot. So the library now has a campaign to run, and so obviously whether or not the library passes would change the town council's capital planning. But I think as counselors, we're still interested in soliciting public feedback on what our priorities are and how they would like to see the council maybe lay out a more transparent process for our planning. One of those two.
Nice. And
I would
certainly if it's the transportation one, we could, it's an opportunity for commission members to weigh in on non-vehicular transportation options for the town.
Like that will probably be your highest attended one yet.
I know.
If
Can we
that's the
just put
topic.
traffic? We're gonna get
traffic. Thanks. Okay, so our next meeting agenda, and let's go for the date as well. I think we've mentioned the possibility / likelihood of October 17 as our next meeting date. Does anyone at this moment feel like they have a real problem with that? I think let's go for that. And then potential guest speakers. We heard about the potential of having Autumn with us at that meeting, the new town planner. And I'm wondering if we'd like to have Tom Hall come and talk with us about trail networks broadly and Eastern Trail, and listen in on our conversation with that, and have him share his thoughts. Might also be an opportunity for, I don't want to, this is like asking a lot of staff to come to an evening meeting, but also Todd Souza. I don't know. What do you all think about that?
So I'll just say that Todd typically plans to come to these meetings. He double booked himself this month inadvertently. So I suspect that he will be here next month.
Great.
I was just going to suggest that we do have Todd Sousa come soon to give us an update on what they have been doing with the town-owned lands in regards to pesticides and the general, organic methods that they've been using, hopefully over the spring, summer, and fall. And perhaps talk with him briefly on, when he should actually come to our meetings and have updates for us regarding that.
Okay.
Hey, Randy, can I ask a quick question of everybody
Yeah.
regarding this? I guess I'm a little bit concerned that my points on the Eastern Trail are mine and mine alone, and that I'm not interested in moving the council, or sorry, our committee to be working on a topic if other folks don't feel like this is a priority. I sort of feel like I've brought this up a number of times, and I kind of feel like I'm sort of a lone voice, which is okay. I don't mind being that lone voice, but I also don't want to drive our agenda if other folks think that we have more pressing matters. I'm certainly sensitive to there's a lot of things that we can be tackling.
Who cares about trails?
I care about trails.
Eastern Trail, me. I think you're not alone.
Okay.
Especially, I live out in West Scarborough, and it's really lousy biking out there.
Yeah, I do too,
Um,
and it's very difficult.
It's dangerous,
and-
fast cars,
Yes.
and connectivity to the Eastern Trail would be a cool thing, but you got to get to a place to connect. So the whole town is an issue to me.
I feel
Yes.
like it's a comprehensive plan issue.
Yeah,
Like right? Am I like a
Yeah.
big,
Yes.
like it should be something every
Yeah.
developer has to integrate in, but we're not doing a good job of that.
and no, I definitely share your interest in connecting the Downs project to the Eastern Trail. There's a big project with a trail that will have a trail network and no way to get to that other big trail.
Well, and hopefully it'll be safe for people to bike within the Downs development, right?
Mm.
And walk to any trails at Warren Woods, and I don't know.
They did just release or make a post today or yesterday on their Facebook page about the trail network that it was just very general information, but talking about the trail network within the Downs that is established, but then also planned to expand as they move through their development.
That's great. And I think it would be a great selling and marketing point for them if there's a whole network of trails and it's easy to bike and walk around that area.
I have a question. Is Costco obliged to make any community contribution in this regard? You know, they're just gonna occupy a piece of land that they bought from Downs developers, but you know, it is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. We sure could use a bridge over Route 1, you know?
So the short answer, the technical answer to your question is they don't have to request a contract zone change or anything because they're zoned to be there. And so there's no formal process that they have to go through to prove public benefit in terms of the council level. The planning board obviously has had more discretion in what the, you know, the facing of the building and the number of parking spaces and all of that kind of stuff. But in terms of like the town having leverage to say, well, if you want to come, you know, we'd really like to see some public benefit. We don't have that leverage on this one.
It's an allowable use, so
Yeah.
they don't have to do anything beyond what the ordinance says.
Oh, they asked. They don't have to.
They won't. They've been asked for other things and they have not.
I see.
So
Okay.
They were able to relocate part of the trail that goes around the Innovation District back that way. I think originally it was the easement that the Downs had was going through their parking lot. And as part of the staff comment, we advised them to route that to the, they have a stormwater lot over there. That's a lot more appropriate for that. So they have rerouted that, which is a very small gesture, but I mean, I think it's going to go a long way in connecting Warren Woods and the overall trails at the Downs as a whole.
But we are not going to get a bridge over Cape Road.
Not from them anyway.
Not from them.
April, do you know if they've committed to putting in EV chargers?
No,
They
that's an
did.
Eric question.
Yes, they did. I don't remember how many, but that was a point that the board made sure to emphasize. So they did provide some EV chargers.
I think it may only be 4 or 8.
Whatever, as long, I mean, anything greater than 0 is a step
I would
forward.
have been happy just with them putting the conduit under their parking lot so that they could install them at a later date. So the fact that they are giving us a couple is,
I
Better
know
than
they had
nothing.
to relocate them as part of adding a sidewalk from the outer part of the parking lot to the actual storefront. So there are several, as Jamie had mentioned, so.
Great, thank you.
they were pretty reluctant for a while. So it's good that they agreed to that.
So, no, you have your answer on trail enthusiasm and support. We'll have a trail focus at our next meeting then, and some good discussion on that. Anything else that for requesting to be included at our next meeting? We'll have some sort of report out. We'll do the same thing, organize old business by goal area.
So we have trails as one focus and then an update from Todd on the town's land care practices from this past growing season and maybe an outlook for what they're anticipating for next season, since he did share that this is usually the time when they're talking about if they're going to have to do any treatments for grub control or anything like that. So I will ask Todd to be prepared with that for our next meeting.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jane. That's great.
All right, everyone. Oh, and then we'll have an update from our education subcommittee. And great. So anything else for the good of the order? Hearing a motion from anyone to adjourn?
So Randy, what was the final date for our next meeting? We decided October
October 17.
17. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I'll adjust the calendar invite so that it should appear correctly on everyone's calendars.
And will it be located here?
It will be here.
Okay, so we already know the room is free.
It will either be here or like town manager's conference room, but this
Okay.
room should be free because usually we run up against planning board and planning board will be the 11th instead of the 10th. So
Oh, great.
I move that we adjourn.
thanks, Rita.
Second.
All right.
Good
All
night,
right, thank
everyone.
you, everyone. Thanks
Thank
for.
you.
Good night.
Thank
Got
you.
through a lot.